Welcome to Integration of Literacy Strategies with Megan Rennick. This webinar is geared towards school librarians to help them integrate literacy strategies and activities into their own school library. Our hope is that it will help you meet the needs and interests of your school population, and for the purposes of this webinar, population is defined as the teachers and students you serve. This quote by Cindy Sheldon I've included because I feel that it fits the who, what, and why of libraries and librarians. Libraries store the energy that fuels the imagination. We are responsible for providing the fodder for students to activate their brains and creativity and knowledge. They open up windows to the world and inspire us to explore and achieve. Well, we work with other classroom teachers and other librarians to help our students explore and achieve. Our windows to the world are our books and the technology that are contained in our libraries. And we contribute to improving our quality of life. Libraries change lives for the better. Well, that says it all. I think that our libraries are the home of our schools, and that is where students truly can grow, no matter their reading level, no matter their home or background. For the purposes of our webinar, I've split it into three sections: the who, why, and what of literacy integration. For who, we're going to discuss the roles of a librarian. For the why, we're going to discuss why should libraries get involved beyond checking books out to our students. And for the what, we're going to look at some activities and literacy strategies that you can implement in your school library immediately. For our first section, let's begin with the who. Who is the librarian in relation to the school? So who? According to Houston, the role of a librarian has changed from the keeper of the books to now a multifaceted, all-encompassing role. Before, a librarian's primary job was to shush students and check books in and out according to the librarian stereotype. But we all know that now library media specialists have 5 key roles: that of a teacher, an instructional partner, an information specialist, a program administrator, and a leader. And for the purposes of this webinar, we'll be focusing on the first 3: the teacher, the instructional partner, and the information specialist. So who is the librarian as a teacher? According to Martis, we are responsible for imparting skills to help students locate, assess, use, and communicate information in all formats. So we need to be able to help students develop their skills in evaluating and accessing sources and using information from multiple sources. We also need to be able to work with teachers and administration to not only develop the students' skills in information literacy, but also the adults in charge of these students. So who is the teacher as an instructional partner? According to Martis, a librarian works with teachers to engage with resources and expertise that allows the collection to be maximized. This means that we don't hoard our materials in our library. We focus on being a partner with teachers in the classroom and expanding the 4 walls of their classroom to include our library. We work with the classroom teacher to design and assess student learning tasks and to integrate them with standards for each content. The state of Kentucky uses the Common Core state standards. This means that librarians work with each content level teacher and focus on standards and target needs and skills that students should develop, and develop activities that can be implemented in the library or in the classroom for the teachers and librarians to work with the students on together. Finally, who is the librarian as an information specialist? We work with students, teachers, and administration on information and technology issues. That means that the librarian goes beyond checking books in and out to working on computer and technology issues for the school, to imparting information to students and teachers and administration, teaching students how to acquire and evaluate information sources. Now, a librarian must understand and be able to navigate e-sources and serve as a guide for quality and ethical information usage. This means that in the world of fake news, our job as a librarian is to ensure that our students understand the quality and quantity of information sources. This brings in evaluating sources, citing them, determining whether or not the search engines and the search terms that students are using are proper, and imparting that information and those skills to our kids. This now brings us to the why. Why should libraries be more than just a place for checking books in and out? So why? Well, according to Martis, to meet a school's needs, the library should be a vital part of literacy in the school. If you think of the school as a wheel, the library is the hub. From the library, all pertinent information sources of technology of print and non-print and literacy should spring forth. It is our job as librarians to respond to the academic needs of all. That includes teachers and students. That means we must work closely with our teachers to know what they need and to help them find it. And that means knowing our students well enough to know what needs and skills must be targeted, and to determine and work with its classroom teachers on how to best achieve that. You must address the population of the school. Much of the state of Kentucky is a Title I district, or rural Title I districts. With Title I comes the different demographics of diversity, of developmental needs, of different learning styles. This means that our job is to target all of those demographics and make sure that our library is a well-rounded and representative place for all of the targeted demographic areas. Finally, a library must be a source of guidance for all resources, technological and print. This means, again, making sure that technological sources are qualitative and up to date and true, and the print sources are well representative of our demographic, that they're up to date, that they're the things that our students and teachers are interested in and need. According to Nobel, school library impact studies have shown that strong library programs produce results. If we have strong libraries, we have better standardized test scores in literacy and reading. We have stronger information literacy skills for the students who leave us, and we have higher graduation rates. In the state of Kentucky, this is composite in our school report card and affects the overall score of our districts. So if our library is strong, it definitely stands to reason that our students and our district will be strong.
Now to the crux of the webinar. What activities can you as a school librarian incorporate into your own school library? I'm glad you asked. I've curated several activities to show you and talk to you about that you can take right back to your own school and implement right away. I have tried each and every one of these activities with my own students in my own school, and I found them to be worthy of the time and attention that they need to be given to students. Students get a lot out of them, and it increases literacy tenfold.
The first literacy integrated activity I want to talk to you about are book talks. Now, book talks are a great way to introduce literature to students, especially struggling readers. A lot of kids aren't going to take the time to read through the top 10 book lists on the internet or to search the shelves. They may not even be interested in talking to their friends. But if you have a targeted audience and they're listening, then it is your job as a librarian to bring that book to life to them, to make them want to read it. And a book talk is a great way to do that. A book talk is pretty simple. You introduce the book without giving away the plot. You leave that on the edge of a seat moment when you're finished that makes the students want to run and find that book and read it. Typically, a book talk includes a brief passage read aloud. Not much, just enough to hook their interest. You finish the talk by showing the location of the book on the shelves, or by recommending something similar to them, something from the same genre or with the same thematic content. Book talks, in addition, are great activities for the classroom teacher to take back to their room. They're great projects for students to participate in themselves. When an independent read time is done, Ask students to get up and share their books. It may make their classmates want to read them as well. Okay, so our next activity is speed dating books. My students love this. They think that it is so much fun and so silly, and then they really get into it and they're surprised by how much they get out of it. Speed dating books follows the same principle as speed dating in the real world. The idea is, instead of meeting a person, you're getting introduced to a book in a short frame of time, and in that short frame of time, you decide yes or no. Are you interested enough to pursue this further? So, if you're doing speed dating with books, first you need to make sure that your desk or tables are arranged in rows, with chairs facing each other. Direct students to chairs and ask them to have their library books with them or their independent reads out. Students meet each other's books in rounds, lasting 2 to 5 minutes each. I usually do about 5 minutes. That gives each student 2-minute turns to introduce their books, and then a minute at the end before the next round to reflect on the book. So, to get to know the book, you determine if you want to date or read it further. Students take about 2 minutes to talk about the cover of their book, the protagonist and the antagonist, the basic plot. It's really not that different from a book talk. You don't give away the ending, and you leave your audience wanting a little bit more. For the younger students, I find that it's really helpful to provide sentence stems for reflection, and we'll see some of those in the next slide. And then at the end, for the reflection time, a chart to record their impressions. So here you can see I've split the screen into two sides. One side has resources and the other is pictures of examples from an actual speed dating activity. So the graphic on the left at the top is a screen grab of the graphic organizer you might give the students. It encourages them to write down the title and the author, what they liked for the pros, and the cons, what they didn't like about the book, and then just a simple yes or no. Is that something that they want to read? At the bottom is another screen grab, and these are sentence stems that you can provide students or coach them with to provide feedback to the person who presented the book. For example, I was drawn to this right away because I like books with a strong female lead. Or, this book wasn't my top because I don't like biographies. I prefer fiction. On the right hand side is photos from when our school did the speed dating. The classroom teacher wanted to do an activity on Valentine's Day, and on the high school level they traditionally don't have Valentine's Day parties, so we decided we would implement speed dating. She set the students' desks up in 2 rows facing each other. Students sat across from each other. The students in the column on the right did not move. They were stationary, while the students on the left moved clockwise down, and then the one on the end would come back to the beginning. And they each got 5 minutes, again, 2 each, to introduce their book, and a minute at the end to reflect. The paper on the desk on the photo on the right, that is the graphic organizer that we use for the students to reflect. Next, we have Research 101. This is something that we like to do at our school, marrying the classroom teacher with the librarian, in which the librarian gets to work on that role as both a teacher and an instructional assistant and as an information specialist. So you work hand in hand with the classroom teacher to teach students the basics of research and citation. We have found that teachers at our school get a little bit overwhelmed or a little bit lost when it comes to teaching just research in isolation, and it's really helpful for them to bring the kids down to the library and let us help them with it. We teach students how to utilize online database. Our school really utilizes Kentucky Virtual Library, so we show students how to research using that as well as Google Scholar. We teach them the proper Boolean search terminology, and we integrate more lessons about generalized search strategies that can be applied across different platforms. Goldstein suggests that too often we get hung up on focusing on one platform or another, when it's better to just teach students a generalized search inquiry technique that can be applied at any time for a multitude of reasons. We also introduce students to annotated bibliography because source evaluation is a key skill for students that colleges are telling us that they are not coming to them with. Here are some resources for Research 101. On the left, there is a document that a team teacher and I worked on together. This document it allows students to keep track of the source that they have found by putting in the topic that they're searching and their name, and then they just tell the author the title of the source, and this is a way of keeping track of their sources for when it comes time for citations. On the right is another resource that we found on the web from a great idea for evaluating the source and determining, based on the criteria on the column on the left, whether or not this is a good source to use. Finally, our last activity I want to talk to you about is book brackets challenges. So in March in Kentucky, we go crazy over college basketball with UK. And this activity is similar to March Madness brackets for college basketball. You host a brackets challenge for best book. And you can do this in a couple of different ways. You can do it for any level of school. For the high school, you could do a YA bracket. For the primary center or elementary school, you could do best picture book. For intermediate level or middle school level, you could do best chapter books. We find that it's great to involve the entire school. Ask teachers, staff, admin, and students to all get involved by determining the Sweet 16, the foundation of books that you're going to pit against each other. There's a couple of ways you can do that. We use Google Forms, so you can create a survey for everyone to fill out to determine the baseline competitors. We've even done it a quicker way. You just print out the top 16 most checked out books in your library, and that determines your Sweet 16 for the brackets. Everyone that wants to participate gets a empty bracket handout, and you just ask them to go ahead based on the baseline competitors. Who do they think will end up being the final four and then the top winner? Encourage all participants to read the nominated books by doing really cool displays around the school, or doing blurbs about the books, or on the morning announcements doing book talks about each of the books that have been nominated. You can have displays in the library where students can check them out. You can work with your public library to bring in extra copies. You can ask for donations from home and get people to donate copies so that everyone has the opportunity to read these books. You really need to encourage students not to vote until they know for sure what that book is about. So another way to increase involvement with this activity is by offering prizes and recognition for each bracket that students get correct. Create a poll for participants to access each day to fill out and determine which book advances next. In the school, create a really prominent bulletin board display of the bracket. Update that school bracket each day after voting commences so that everyone knows what has gone on to the next round. We also offer a big prize at the end for the student who predicted the most winning books. One thing that we have done is given away a copy of every book that was nominated, or every book that kid got right. They got a copy of that book. We give away school memorabilia like t-shirts or mugs or pencils, really anything that you can do to encourage participation. And here are some examples of the book bracket challenges. On the left is the school-wide display, and they used just some sticky tape and cut out letters, and then they made sure they printed the covers of each book that they had done, and it went from the Sweet 16 to the Elite 8 to the Final 4 to the last two, and then the overall winner. And on the right is a blank bracket with some books already filled out for the Sweet 16, and then from there students determine the Elite 8, again the Final 4, Final 2, and the overall winner. So I appreciate you coming to this webinar and listening. I hope you've gotten something out of this. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Hope that you are able to implement some of these into your own school. Feel free to drop me a comment and let me know how it went. Hope you had fun. Hope you learned a little bit. Thank you so much.